Nazi war criminals began in Nuremberg, and the story of the Holocaust was about to be told for the first time. There are many who hoped that the trials might bring some sense of closure to the Holocaust. But we know now from the evidence in that trial that there can never be closure to the Holocaust. It is like a black pit, a deep black pit, where the bodies of 6 million Jews lie at the bottom and millions of others deemed undesirable by Adolf Hitler. The war ended in 1945. I fought in that war. I was a soldier in the Third Army, fought in France, Germany, Austria. And when the war was over, in that year of 1945, thousands of GIs started going home, back to the States, back to their jobs. I had no job to go back to. I was a young man in my early 20s. So I took a job with the American newspaper in Europe, the Stars and Stripes. And one of my first assignments was to cover the Nuremberg war crimes trials. Some have called it the greatest trial in history. There are many questions in our mind among those of us who were in the press as the trials got underway. Questions like these, questions that still remain unanswered. How could a nation, perhaps the most cultured nation on earth, how could it have suddenly turned so barbaric? How could it have organized so many of its people to participate in those atrocities? Questions like those we are still asking today. I cannot recreate all of that trial to you, of course. The trial went on for 8 months. It had many dramatic periods. But there's some things that I can do, and I will do. I'm going to call to the stand, as it were, a man who might have been called as a witness at the Nuremberg trials. He wasn't called, he was too ill, they couldn't find him at the time. But his testimony is typical and much like much of the testimony we heard at the Nuremberg trials. This is not a play. This is not an act. The man you're about to hear, his story is very real. And I will call to the stand now Lou Dunst. Would you state your name, please?
Lou Dunst.
Would you spell your last name?
D-U-N-S-T.
And how old are you, Mr. Dunst?
I'm 73 years old.
Mr. Dunst, I want to take you back in time. Back in time to when you were 14 years old. That would have been about the year 1940 or 1941, is that right?
That is correct.
Where were you living then?
In Jasina, Czechoslovakia.
And who were you living with?
With my parents, mother, father, sister, and brother. I am the youngest of the family.
Yes, and what did your parents do?
My parents had a retail store, a general merchandise retail store.
And what happened then? Tell us what happened in that year.
In that year, they took away all Jewish men to slave labor, where they worked them very hard under very bad conditions as far as freezing, starving, beatings, and torture.
Just a minute. You said they took. Who
yes.
took?
At that time, we were occupied by the Hungarians.
Yes. And did they take your father also?
Yes, they did. All Jewish men, including my father. They called it Munkatábor.
Well, what happened? What did they do?
They had to go to slave labor, and they worked them very hard under very rough conditions.
Did they tell you why they were doing this?
They did not say why.
They just come into your house and take him away?
Well, he had to go. That was the law that they all had to go, all Jewish men.
This was a time when the war was on, is that right?
Yes.
And what did you do during that time?
They took us teenagers to slave labor called Levante, and we had to load and unload military equipment. They worked us all day, all night, whatever they wanted.
Did you still live at your home?
Yes, we were at home. The children were at home. The father was not.
Well, who was your bosses? Who told you to do this?
Well, it was the Germans and the Hungarians.
And why did they do this to you, to your family?
Because we are Jewish.
So how long did this go on?
That went on till we were taken away to Auschwitz.
When were you taken away?
Prior to that, they rounded up Jewish people from other countries and brought them into our place, about 14,000 men, women, and children. And they were starving. They brought them in boxcars, and they were crying for food and water. We shared with them whatever we had.
In your town?
Yes, in our town.
You saw these people gathered in your town?
Yes, that was the end station because it was a border town.
What was the name of that town?
Jasina. At that time, they changed it to Körösmező.
Right. And how old were you at this time?
I was 15 years old.
When they brought all these people into your town, how old were you then?
15 years old.
And when was it that you were taken away?
In 44, beginning of 44.
How old were you then?
I was 18.
Okay, you were 18 years old.
18 years old.
Tell us exactly what happened when you were 18 and how you were taken away.
They knocked on the door one early morning, and we all had to get ready real quick in a hurry.
Yes, who knocked on the door?
The Hungarian gendarmes, and besides them they had Germans.
And who was in your home at that time?
We were all at home, parents, my sister and brother.
How old was your sister at the time?
My sister is 4 years older than I am, and my brother is 2 years older than I am.
And did they come at night or day? Or
no, it was early in the morning.
Did you know they were coming?
We had no idea. We did not know.
Well, had your father returned from this slave labor?
At that time he was back, yes, from the slave labor he was back, yes.
And did they tell you why they were taking you away?
They did not tell us why. They told us that the Jewish people had to do what they say or else they will be shot.
Right. And so tell us what happened.
Well, we had a synagogue in our neighborhood, and there were 3 Torahs, and we brought those Torahs back, and we put those Torahs neatly away in our home.
Yes. And then what happened?
We were all taken to downtown, to the center of the village, and we were put into a large building. At one time it was a theater.
Well, what happened when you were taken away? What happened to your home?
We had to leave it just the way it was.
Was it a house or apartment or what?
A home. We had a home.
Yes. And what happened to your father's store?
It was given away to the Nazis.
All right. So you were taken into the center of town, is that right?
Yes, we were at the center of town in a large building.
And were there other people gathered together?
All the Jewish people from that town at that time were all there. And we didn't even fit because the building wasn't large enough to hold us, so some of us had to stay outside in the rain. And
well, when you went out this way, did you take your belongings with you?
They told us we don't need to take anything. We are only going to the downtown area, to the center of the town.
Do you have any idea where you were going?
We had no idea. They didn't tell us anything.
These people who took you, they were Hungarians and Germans?
Hungarians and Germans and local Nazis.
Were they in uniform?
Yes, some of them uniforms, some civilians, some black uniforms.
Did they have guns?
Yes, they had machine guns.
Did they threaten you in some way?
At that time they did not. They just told us that then they took us up to the Jewish cemetery.
Yes.
And before you get to the Jewish cemetery, there's a flat piece of land. And we were told that we're going to have to dig our own graves, and we will be machine gunned down.
Why did they tell you why they made such a threat? Why were they going to do this?
The only thing they know is because we were Jewish. That was the only answer.
All right. But you were still in your town at the time.
We are in our town by the cemetery, waiting to...
This would have been what year?
44, beginning of 1944.
The war was still on.
Yes, the war was on, very well on yet at that time.
Was your town occupied by foreign troops at that time?
No, except the Germans were there and the Hungarians.
All right. And the Hungarians and Germans were working together?
Yes, they were working together.
All right. And what happened then?
Something has changed. They rounded us up. We couldn't do anything, but something changed and they took us to the railroad.
All right. How did they walked you or rode you?
Yes, we were marched from the cemetery to the railroad.
And your family was
all together. We were all together. All the Jewish people from the whole town. There was not one Jewish people in town that was not there. We were all there.
Right. They marched you all to the railroad.
To the railroad.
Is that right? And then what happened there?
We were put in boxcars, packed tight, and they didn't have any facilities as far as toilet facilities. If there was a bucket on one end, the one that had to go to the other end, they never made it. By that time, we already had diarrhea and other illnesses.
Well, okay, they packed you all, as I understand it, into these boxcars.
Correct,
right?
Yes.
And the boxcars had no facilities, no water,
no water, no food, not enough air.
Did you have any food with you?
No, they did not give us any food.
All right. So when you were in the boxcars, did they tell you where you're going to go?
They locked the doors from the outside, and off we go.
Was there any air coming in at all?
Very little. A lot of people had trouble breathing because the openings were just small openings on top on those boxcars.
Were there children? Were there babies?
There were babies, there were children, there were pregnant women, there were old people, there were sick people, yes.
All right. And then what happened after you were locked into the boxcar?
Off we go. The machine gave a whistle, like a happy whistle, we were ready to go. And we were traveling day and night, we did not know where.
You didn't know where you were going?
We had no idea.
So what happened in those boxcars? How did you exist?
Well, it was very, very hard because some people soiled their clothes because they couldn't get to the bucket. Many of us had diarrhea. Some people, were vomiting. And it was a bad trip.
And the doors were not open?
The doors were not open.
How long was this trip?
Day and night. I don't remember how many days or how many nights, but it was several days and nights till we came to our last stop.
All right. What was the condition of the people who were in the boxcars? Did any of them suffer? Did any of them die?
No, at that time I don't remember anybody dying as yet. Later on they did, but at that time not.
When you came to the last stop, where were you? Do you know?
They opened up the doors, and we were in a Hungary called Mátészalka. We were put into a ghetto.
That was a ghetto in Hungary?
A ghetto in Hungary.
Yes.
Yes.
And so you got out of the boxcars?
Out of the boxcars into a ghetto, small space, too many people.
Yes.
We had no room to lie down or with threats. If you go here, you get shot. You go here, a pregnant woman will get shot. You do this, you get shot. Everything was under threats.
When you say a ghetto, what do you mean? You mean a building or a room?
It was a section of a town, and it was marked. This is the ghetto.
And you couldn't go outside of it?
No, you step over, you get shot.
Did anybody try to step over?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And there were people guarding you?
There were people guarding us all the
guns?
time, with machine guns.
Yes. And were they wearing Nazi
Yeah, they
badges
were
of some kind?
German uniforms, SS uniforms, and German gendarme, and Hungarian gendarme.
So what happened when you were in this ghetto?
Several days later, we were taken to a cemetery in Mátészalka. And we were told to give up everything we had in our pockets, like a pen, a pencil, or a notebook, or a watch. And we were told that if we don't give up everything, they will search our bodies, that we will be shot, those that don't give up everything.
So is that what you did?
Yes, we gave up everything. And when they say search the bodies, they include human cavities.
Yes.
Under brutal.
So how long were you there in that ghetto?
couple of weeks or so, something to that effect. I don't remember the exact time element.
Was it outside?
Yes, well, there were houses there. Now, some people were able to get into the attic or in the basement or in the house. It was a closed-in area.
So how did you eat? How did you get food?
There was very little food, maybe just enough to survive.
Did they tell you? Did they ever tell you why they were doing this to you?
They didn't tell us. They did not tell us. They just told us to be nice and quiet and behave.
All right. And so you stayed there for several weeks in this ghetto. And then what happened?
We were marched off to the railroad.
Back to the railroad again?
Put into boxcars, the same procedure as far as food or other facilities. Off we go.
And then you went on another trip in the boxcars?
We were locked. The boxcars.
Did they tell you whether you were going then?
They did not tell us. They did not tell us.
And what happened on this trip?
Well, off we go, day and night, back and forth. They hooked on other trains and other boxcars, and we traveled several days and several nights.
How crowded was this boxcar?
It was very crowded.
What do you mean by that?
Very crowded because they pushed us in. They by force. They forced us in there as many as they could, standing up like one like this.
Well, at night, were you able to all lie down?
No,
and sleep?
there was no room to lie down.
Right. And this went on. This trip was again for several days and nights.
Several days and several nights. Yes, stop and go. Several days and several nights.
Did anyone? What was the? Did people suffer? Or how did they live? How did they exist?
Well, they were just suffering, and most of us didn't say anything. We didn't know what to say or whom to say it to.
You're still together with all your
Still
family?
together. Still together. All the families, all together, yes.
Again, were there babies, children?
With the babies, children, sick people, yes, all together.
And where did you stop?
Well, last stop, the doors opened up, everybody out. Now, at that time, there were some that were lying there in their own excrements. They couldn't get up. Some were dying. Some were dead. Some lost their reasoning.
That is when they opened the boxcars?
When they opened up the boxcars, yes.
And what happened?
We were told to get out. So those that were able, we got out.
Where were you then?
That was Auschwitz.
In what country?
In Poland.
All right. That was the famous Auschwitz concentration.
Auschwitz concentration camp, yes.
When you got out of the boxcars, where did you go then?
We didn't know where we are. We inquired the inmates that worked where we are. They told us Auschwitz. We didn't even know what Auschwitz is or what it means. So they told us that we are going to be gassed and cremated.
Who told you this?
The inmates that worked there.
You mean other
inmates?
Other Jewish inmates?
Other Jewish. There were 95% Jewish inmates, yes.
As soon as you got out of the boxcars, you had contact with them?
Yes, we talked with them, yes. Our own language, in Yiddish.
And they told you that you were going to be gassed?
That's what they told us. And we did not believe them. We did not. So they showed us, look, you see the chimneys?
What did you see
the smoke?
What did you see?
The chimneys. And we saw the smoke. And they say, can you smell it? Yes, we did smell it.
What did you smell?
It smells like burned hair. If you take hair and you burn it, that's what it smelled like.
And so, okay, you're out of the boxcars.
Yes.
You've been told that you're going to be gassed and cremated.
Yes.
And where did you all go? Your family?
It was chaos. You were chased. You go here, you go there, you go here, you go there.
Your mother, your father, your sister and brother?
We were still all together, but then we are being separated because my mother and sister went this way. That was the last time I saw my mother. And my father and my brother went this way. Shortly we were separated from our father. He was murdered.
Mr. Dunst, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I can continue.
Okay, you go on?
Yes, we can go on. My father was murdered either in Auschwitz or Buna.
Just a moment. I want to make sure I get the picture. You got out of the boxcars. You were still with your family. And you were marched somehow into a place where people told you where to go.
Yeah, there was Dr. Mengele with his entourage, and everybody had a stick, and if you didn't follow what they wanted you to do, what they motioned you to, they hit you, and the dogs were biting you in the legs. And this is how...
There were dogs
yes.
chasing you?
Yes.
And when you came up to a group of doctors or somebody in white coats?
They were doctors. No, they didn't have white coats. I don't remember seeing uniforms.
And you were still with your mother?
At that time, we were still with the mother.
And then you said someone...
We are separating now. You go here and you go there.
Who said that?
The SS, the doctors, Dr. Mengele was there, but he was not by himself. He had a whole entourage. There were many of them there.
So they decided at that point to separate your family,
yes.
Is that right?
Yes. All the families were separated.
Well, how would they separate it? I mean, what was the reason? What was the criteria?
They did not give us any reason or why and how. Now, the inmates were saying for mothers that had little babies, give away the baby so you can survive. So can you imagine that they take away a baby from a mother, a newborn baby? It was horrible. The expression on the faces were horrible.
Try to describe it for us. I know it's hard. Try to describe what happened to those mothers with those babies. What was happening?
We had our own problems because they had to go this way and we were already...
Who had to go that way?
The women, the children, whoever, they were separating us.
Women and children went one way?
One way, yes. Probably those were the children, they probably went straight to the gas chamber.
Why did they separate the women and children from the men?
They didn't tell us. They said that the women are going to do the cooking and the men are going to go to work and everything is going to be all right.
And the women and their babies, their children, were sent in one direction.
Some of them went straight to the gas chamber.
And, well, did they decide in some way? Wasn't there any questioning or interviews?
There was no questioning, no interviews. They just looked and here. It was, at that time, Auschwitz was a very busy place because the transports were coming in, those trains, like thousands of people on each train. They had about 100 people in each box, and they had 40, 50 boxcars to each train. They were exterminating as many as 12 to 15,000 people in 24 hours. They did not play around. Everything was fast and run. Whatever we did was not fast enough for them.
Look, when they told your mother to go one way,
yes,
and told you to go another
yes.
way, that was the last time you ever saw your mother?
That was the last time I saw my mother.
As far as you know, she went directly to the gas chamber.
Yes.
What about you?
I spoke with my sister, and she doesn't want to talk about it, what exactly happened. The details, she does not care to talk about it.
What about your father? What happened to him?
My father was separated from us, and he was murdered either in Auschwitz or Buna.
Right. And what happened to you? Tell us what happened.
We were marched on top of a huge pile of clothing, and we were told to undress. And we were inquiring what happened to the people from these clothing. We were told that they went through the chimney. That was the expression if somebody was cremated or whoever was going through the chimney.
Yes. And so what happened? Did you take off all your clothes?
We took off all our clothes. They picked out the strong young men, and they took them to the Sonderkommando. Sonderkommando was those that carried the bodies from the gas chambers to the pits where they burned them or to the crematorium, and they had to work under very fast tempo.
They picked out certain young
strong
men.
The strong ones.
And their job was what?
That's what they did. They dragged the bodies from the gas chamber to the crematorium or to the fire pits.
Did you see this happening?
Yes, it was right there.
And then what happened to you?
We went into a barrack next, and all the hair was clipped off from the body, and we were put in a barrack in Birkenau. Birkenau. That's right next door. It's part of Auschwitz. Actually, they call it Auschwitz too.
Where were the gas chambers? Were they at Auschwitz or were they at Birkenau?
Most of them in Birkenau. The biggest slaughter place was Birkenau.
But were there also gas chambers at Auschwitz?
Yes, there were some in Auschwitz, but most of them were in Birkenau.
But as I understand it, you were taken to Birkenau, right?
Yes, we were in Birkenau.
Is that about a mile or so?
Yeah, a short walk from where we were.
And when you were in Birkenau, where were you placed then? What happened?
We were in Birkenau. We were in a barrack, and across from our fence was the gypsy camp, Zigeunerlager, what they called in German. And today they were here. The next morning they were all gone.
So these gypsies were also in a concentration camp?
Yes, they were right across the fence from us in Birkenau at that time.
All right. So tell us, continue, what happened at Birkenau?
Birkenau, we were in those barracks, we were in quarantine. We were told that we are going to be gassed because we were not tattooed. So we were going to be gassed. Several days later, we were taken to the railroad.
To the railroad at Auschwitz?
To the railroad and Auschwitz.
You were never taken into a gas chamber yourself at Auschwitz?
Not in Auschwitz. Not in Auschwitz.
Did they ever tell you, anyone ever tell you why they were doing this to you?
They did not. The only thing was well known and self-understood is because we are Jewish.
That's all that you knew?
That's all. Now, when they took us to the railroad, at this time there was a big change. There was no children, no elderly people, no sick people, only strong young men
like
within
yourself.
A certain...
You were 7, you were 18 at the time.
I was 18 at the time, yes. Let's say they had probably in there people from 17, 18 on up to 40.
And am I correct in saying that those mothers and children and sick people that you just talked about, they all went through the gas
At that
chamber?
time, they were all gone. Yeah, they were all cremated at that time. And some of us envied them because we thought that they're all done and over. And
yes.
We thought that they were better off than we are.
Did you ever see your father there?
I've never seen my father after we were separated.
How about your sister?
My sister, I saw her after we were liberated, and several months after the war ended, we found her.
Your brother, what happened to him?
My brother was together with me all the time.
So your brother was with you, and then your brother went into the boxcar again with you?
Yes, off we go from Auschwitz, locked the boxcars, and we're traveling day and night.
When you were to Auschwitz during this period of time, by the way, how long were you there before you left?
It was probably several days, maybe a couple of weeks. Some was. I cannot recall or say exactly how many days. Probably a couple of weeks or less.
Were you put to work? Did you do any
No,
work there?
no work. We did not work in Birkenau.
What did you do there?
Well, just in the barracks, and to the toilet we could only go once in 24 hours. If somebody had to do in between, they were in trouble.
Were you fed?
Some, very little. We were giving some water. It wasn't even warm, but dyed dark. It looked like tea, but it was not tea or coffee or anything like that. Water.
Did you receive any kind of medical treatment?
No medical treatments at all. Nobody even talked about medical treatments.
Did anyone ever try to escape?
The people tried to escape, not from our group, but from other groups. They died. They tried to escape, yes.
What happened?
They were not very successful. Only a few were successful in escaping from Auschwitz.
So when you left Auschwitz in the boxcar, where did you go?
We didn't know where we were going. Last stop was Mauthausen in Austria.
That's a town in Austria?
A town in Austria, Mauthausen, called Mauthausen.
How long was that trip from Auschwitz to?
Also several days and nights, and
they were just young men in the boxcar?
Only young men that they think, young men, yes.
Did they ever tell you why you were going to Mauthausen?
No, they did not.
And who guarded you?
We were guarded by SS, German SS,
They were
in
uniforms?
uniforms, yes.
All right. And what happened when you got to Mauthausen?
Mauthausen is a camp on top of a hill. There were steps. There is close to 200 steps there to go up, like 190, 96, 95 steps. And we had to run up those steps. And those that couldn't run, they fell down and they were stepped on. So some of us made it up there and some of us did not.
It's hard for me to understand. You said you had to run.
Yes, because we were chased.
Who chased you?
The Germans, the SS.
Chased you with what?
With the dogs, with the sticks, sticking bayonets in your ribs.
So they made you run up these steps?
Run up those steps.
Were there any women with you then?
No women there. No women. Only just those men that left from Auschwitz.
Okay. Then what happened?
Well, Auschwitz was very famous or infamous, whichever way you want to label it. They were famous for torture, extermination.
Just tell us what happened to you first.
We were put on, the whole group was put into quarantine.
What do you mean by that? In a room, in a building?
In a barrack.
Yes.
In a barrack.
Were you told what was going to happen to you?
We were told we were going to be gassed.
Who told you that?
The Blockhaltester.
Did it tell you when?
No, just we're going to be gassed. And in the meantime, night came around and he says everybody is going to sleep and every one of us will take up this much room. We didn't know what he was talking about, and he knew that, so he goes like this, and like this, of course, at that time, and we had to sleep like, he says, Portugal sardines. We had somebody else's feet in your face, and your face was on somebody else's feet. And this is how you couldn't turn around, just on your side and straight.
So you understood while you were in that barracks that you were going to be taken to a gas chamber?
That's what we were told.
Did you see crematoriums there?
No, didn't see it. From the place where we were, we didn't see it.
Did you hear that people were being gassed
Oh,
there?
yeah, that was going on there all the time.
What did you hear? What did they tell you?
They didn't tell us when or how or what. They told us that we're going to be gassed. And we were taken to the gas chamber.
And you were still with your brother?
Yes, with my brother. The whole group was taken at the same time.
How was your brother? How was he taking all this?
Well, he seemed to be a little stronger than I.
What do you mean by that?
He held up a little better than I. I wanted to commit suicide.
Yes.
So we were taken into the gas chambers, the doors locked, and nothing happened.
This was at Mauthausen.
That was Mauthausen.
And you were put into a gas chamber?
Yes.
What was a gas chamber like? Describe it.
It is just a room like any other room, like a hall, and there were
Like
even
the room you're in now?
like a room. Yeah, it could be if you close this hermetically and you drop Cyclone B. This is a gas chamber.
You understood that you were going into that room to be gassed?
Yes.
Right. And how many people were with you?
I don't know how many, probably several hundred. I don't know how many fit in that room at that time. Probably maybe 100 at a time, or 150.
It was crowded.
Maybe 200. Yes, crowded. Yes.
Yes. And you're all just waiting to die.
All waiting. We didn't know what we were waiting for.
But you were told you were going to be gassed.
Yeah, we were told we're going to be gassed, but nothing is happening.
Did anyone try to fight against it or resist it
No,
in any way?
we had no strength to fight or anything, or no.
And then when you're in the gas chamber and you're still with your brother,
Yes, we were
and were the
still.
doors closed,
The doors were locked from the outside.
and what happened?
We were there, and a few minutes later, I don't know how many, whether it was 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, I cannot judge. The doors opened up, says everybody out in a hurry, quick, to the Appellplatz.
And nothing happened.
No. So we went out to the Appellplatz, and the commander of the camp said that the fuel to burn our bodies is too expensive, that he will send us to a place where we are going to vanish without any cost to the Third Reich.
Did he tell you what he meant by that?
No, just simple language.
So then tell us what happened.
Well, we were given numbers, a metal plate number here and one here and one here. We are this. My group is the series of 68,000. My number is 68,122. My brother's number is 68,123. We were taken to the railroad. Off we go.
By the way, did you keep those metal plates?
I still have that metal number.
With your number on it?
Yes, I do. Yes, the original metal number, yes.
All right.
Yes.
So tell us what happened next.
We were taken to the railroad. Off we go. Last stop, a new place was being built, a new camp.
What was the name of that camp?
Ebensee.
That was nearby?
That was a branch of Mauthausen. It is probably maybe 50 miles or something away from Mauthausen. We were transported there by train.
Again, did they tell you why they were moving you to Ebensee?
They never shared any information with us at all. Just, you do this and quick in a hurry, and if you don't do it fast enough, you're beating, or the dogs grab your leg or whatever.
You said that you were on the verge of committing suicide.
Yes.
Did you ever try to commit suicide?
I tried to figure out how to do it, yes. And I figured the best thing would be for me to throw myself in front of a train when the train comes, but it was not so easy. The facilities were not there.
Did you talk to your brother about this?
No, once a little bit I talked to him about it, that he detected that but I also tried to put it on the scale. Now, if I don't commit suicide, I will be working in making bullets that will kill me. If I commit suicide, I will violate the Ten Commandments, because the Ten Commandments tell us, thou shalt not kill. So I would be killing myself. So I couldn't come to a real decision. I had problems with making the real decision.
So you're at Ebensee now?
Yes, you're
in
in
Austria, right?
It's in Austria, correct.
And this is the year of, still the year of...
1944.
We're still in the year 1944?
1944. We're still in the year of 1944, in the summertime, late summer.
All right.
Yes.
And what happens in Ebensee?
In Ebensee, it was a very bad place. Conditions were very hard there. Starvation, beatings, torture.
Why do you say that? What's your basis for saying that?
Because that's what was going on there.
Did you see it?
I felt it, because they were beating me, or my next door neighbor, or whoever. They were beating us.
What do you mean? What do you mean when you say they were beating you?
Okay.
How?
We had to work in the daytime in Steinbruch, which was the underground factories, in the nighttime building the camp, because the camp was just being built.
That was at Ebensee?
Yes, and they were hitting us with the roots from the trees. Just picked up the roots and hit anybody everywhere.
Hitting you to do what?
To work faster.
And what were you do? What kind of work were you doing?
We were cleaning the place, so they put up the barracks, and then we had to build a crematorium, because there were already bodies lying around that had to be taken care of.
And you saw those bodies?
Yes, they were right there. Yeah.
So these were dead bodies.
Dead bodies.
From the crematorium lying around.
Lying around, and
we had to take away.
We had to build a crematorium so they can be cremated.
How did that feel? How did that feel? They were going to make you build a crematorium to kill other Jews, right?
They kept us under conditions that we had no time to think even what is going on. We were demoralized, dehumanized. To give you an example of torture, the commander of the camp had special trained dogs to attack inmates. So you take a group of inmates and get the dogs after him. The dogs were tearing him, and we had to look at him, and we were told this is what happens to people that don't obey. They hung people and say this is what happens to people that try to escape. So they kept us scared all the time.
Just a minute. I'm sorry to make you recount this, But I want everyone to know actually what happened. You said they showed you people being torn apart in some way?
Yes, we had to look at them.
What did you see? What did you look at?
The dogs attacking the group, and one is staring here and one is staring here.
They tore a body apart?
Yeah, they tore their clothes and the body and bite them.
And then you said you saw people hung?
Yes, they hung them.
How many did you see hung?
Several, maybe 6, 8, 10, and lined up saying, this is what happens to people that try to escape.
And so what happened next? What did you do?
Well, we still had to go to work. We were going to work, as I say, they worked us day and night. If you work in the daytime here, you work nighttime over there. Starvation was bad. Freezing in the wintertime. Now that time already we got closer to winter, where we didn't have proper clothes or proper shoes. We had wooden clogs. The bottom of our feet were frostbitten, where they get blistered. We still had to go to work the way we are.
You worked day and you worked night, is that right?
They worked us all the hours that they possibly could.
Were there any women there?
No women there. No women inmates. No.
Right. And how long did this go on?
It goes on and on, day after day, week after week. At that time, they didn't need any more crematoriums or gas chambers, rather, because there were dead bodies all over. Starvation was so bad that cannibalism became stylish. I myself, like many others, became what they call a Muslim. No flesh and no muscles on the body, and no desire to live. So we were hauled off to piles by the crematorium.
About how much did you weigh then?
I cannot estimate how many pounds, but there was no muscles and no flesh. I didn't have any strength to stand up. But there were hundreds and hundreds like me. I was not the only one. And we were put on piles by the crematorium. Those on the bottom of those piles were already dead for a number of days.
What part of the year was this when you put on these piles? Was that 44 or 45?
This was already springtime 45.
So you had stayed in Ebensee doing this work?
Yes.
From 44 until the spring of 45?
Yes. Until May, till we were liberated.
Till May of 45?
Yes.
You just said something, and I want you to describe it for us. You said you were placed on a pile?
Yes.
Of bodies?
Yes.
Corpses?
Yes, dead bodies.
How big was this pile?
Huge. There were more than one pile. There were several piles, but they were huge. They just piled them up one on top of the other. Some were dying, some were dead already, some
of the bodies were moving?
Some were moving, yes.
Were they saying anything? Were they crying out?
They were crying. They didn't even care to live any longer. This is what I call a Muslim, where you have no more desire to live. For what? What for?
And your brother was still with you?
No, my brother was in the camp, but he was not around there. He knew that I was taken to there.
Did you and your brother ever try to help each other and give each other some emotional
support? My brother helped me quite a bit.
How did he help you?
If not for him, I would not be here today.
How did he help you?
At one time, he had it a little bit easier because he was in a different Steinbruch, and he shared some of his food with me.
How did he do that? Was he allowed to do that?
Well, if we met at a certain time, he made it his business to meet with me, and this is what. And at times, I didn't want to take it from him because I was worried we both gonna die.
Oh, did you see other family relationships like father and son and so forth?
Yes, there were fathers and sons, and the father would say to his son, well, my stomach is hurting me. You take the little food that he received, whatever it was, a little soup, and he gave it to his son just to make sure that the son will survive. He didn't care about himself, the father didn't, but he worried about his son. So he gave him his food hoping that he would survive. Just like my brother did with me. He gave me some.
So you worked through the winter of 44 and 45.
Yes, correct.
And you're doing the same kind of work all the time, right?
Well, no, I was placed in different places. I worked in the Steinbruch, I worked in the smaller Steinbruch, I worked in Attnang-Buchheim.
What happened if you didn't want to work? What happened if you got sick or something like that?
If somebody didn't get out to the Appellplatz in order to go to work, they took him to the crematorium. They took him to the there in Ebensee. They had a special hospital for Jewish hospital, what they called Yiddish Revier. And in there, it was a slaughterhouse. Whoever got in there never got out. It was a slaughterhouse. They called it hospital, but it was a slaughterhouse.
Yes, and tell us now about the time that you were placed on this pile of bodies.
Yeah, at that time, the American army was getting closer to the camp, and the commander of the camp got on the loudspeakers and made an announcement for everybody to go into those tunnels, underground tunnels, where they will be safe, because the American army is going to bombard and they're going to shoot, they're going to machine gun. So in order for those that were able to get into those tunnels to save their lives, to make sure to go in there. But what he didn't tell us, that he had everything mined with dynamite and other explosives. They even pulled up a locomotive to the main opening, the entrance and exit. It was the same. The entrance and the exit was the same. A locomotive filled with dynamite. All he had to do is push the button, and all of those that would be in there, at that time the camp was holding, I think, round figures, maybe 25,000 Ebensee at that time. All he had to do is push the button, and everybody would be buried alive, and nobody would ever know what happened.
So what happened? You were placed on this pile of bodies, right?
Yes.
And you knew the Americans were coming?
I didn't know.
You didn't know?
I didn't know. No,
you had no word like that?
I didn't know. No, I didn't know.
They took you and just placed you on this pile of
many of us, hundreds and hundreds. Hundreds and
you
hundreds.
were placed on the top?
Yeah, well, whoever was, the last one was on top, and then if somebody came, so there was...
Were you dying at the time?
Yes, yes.
You felt you were dying?
If this would have lasted for another 2-3 hours, I would not have survived. And I didn't care. I didn't want to survive anymore.
So what happened? Tell us what happened.
Well, the American army liberated the camp. That was May the 6th, 1945. My brother came looking for me, and he is shaking me, and he says that the American army liberated the camp, and I couldn't figure out what he's saying. So he says he saw him with his own eyes.
You were on these bodies at the time?
Yes, I was still on that pile.
Your brother came over to talk to you?
Yes.
And then did you somehow get off the pile?
Yes, I got off the pile. He pulled me off, and he's telling me that the American army liberated the camp, and he tells me that he saw him with his own eyes, that those are Americans, and we will get something to eat, and we will be free to go home. He even told me that he went on top of an American tank that came into the camp, that he stepped on it to make sure that I believe him.
So how did that make you feel?
Well, at that time I did not try to think, but looking back, I say to myself, where was the world and where was mankind?
The Americans came.
The Americans came.
Is that right?
We were saved, and we were taken to Linz. And from Linz,
in Austria, right?
Yes, that's a town in Austria. And from Linz on to Prague, and we were put in a hospital called Podoli Sanatorium. And they tried to cure us. They told us just to eat what they give us, because some of us died from eating too much or too fast or whatever. So, and they cured me, and many others, of course. And I went back there 50 years later to tell them thank you.
And eventually, did you come to America?
Yes, eventually I came to America.
Thank you.
the best country in the world.
After 8 months of evidence, the first Nuremberg war crimes trial, the trial of the main 21, came to an end. The judges representing the 4 Allied nations found 18 of the 21 guilty. 3 were acquitted. Of the 18 found guilty, 11 were sentenced to death by hanging. But only 10 were hanged. One man, Hermann Goering, second in command to Adolf Hitler, cheated the gallows by committing suicide. When they went to get him in a cell that night, they found him dead from a cyanide pill he'd somehow smuggled into a cell. And now, 55 years later, one may well ask, well, what did the Nuremberg trials achieve? Are they of any value to today? Did they stop war? Well, no, of course not. Did they stop the atrocities of war? No, they didn't do that either. We know that from countries like Cambodia and Iraq and Rwanda and now Kosovo. They didn't stop the atrocities. But they were of great value. They were a triumph of good over evil. They brought to justice the worst criminals in history. They showed that the rule of law could be applied to punish, if not prevent, war crimes. And they set an ethical standard for all war crimes, a standard of justice and due process. And they set a rule that for all courts, everywhere, a simple rule, but so important, that no matter how heinous the crime charged may be, the accused is entitled to a fair trial. And the trial showed how low a highly civilized nation could sink under ruthless leadership. And they prevented those war criminals from becoming martyrs, which they would have done had there been no trial. And something else. One other thing they did. Something that's very important to people like Lou Dunst. I have read from reliable studies that up to 20% of Americans still do not believe that the Holocaust ever occurred. That the murder of 6 million Jews was a myth. Well, the record at the Nuremberg trials stands forever. The record is bold and clear of what the Nazis did for all to see. And had there been no trial, that figure of 20% who still do not believe might well be higher. Before I close, I'd like to ask Mr. Dunst just one more question. Not as lawyer to witness, but just as man to man. Mr. Dunst, there's one more question that I'd like to ask of you.
Yes.
You are a religious man.
Yes, I am religious.
A religious Jew.
Very religious Jew.
You have a strong belief in God.
Very much so.
You have always attended synagogue regularly.
And I always will attend.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
In those darkest days at Auschwitz and Mauthausen, particularly that last day, when you were lying on top of that pyre of bodies, some dead, some dying, and you felt that you were dying yourself, did you ever wonder if God had forsaken you?
God has never forsaken me. He was always there. We were dying, many of us, Those were the darkest and the saddest days in history of mankind.
Did it ever shake your belief, though, that God, whether God existed or not?
My belief changed from better to better, from stronger to stronger, and it does continue to change till this day.
And nothing you saw, nothing you experienced, ever in any way shook that belief?
No, it never did. Not in me and not in many others. In thousands of others. Even the atheists started to pray to God.
Thank you, Mr. Dunst.
El malei rachamim shochein bamromim amitzei menucha nechona b'tzel kanifei hashchina b'maloit kedoshim dorim Kizora kia mirim umazirim et nishmot achenu ve'achiotenu shenergu v'shenishchatu ושנשרפו חיים על קידוש השם מבוי שכולנו כל בני ישראל מתייחדים עם זכרם הקדוש ומתפללים בעליית נשמותיהם
Anytime, anywhere, absolutely free.